I'm tired of getting picked on. I'm tired of having to take these damn train tracks halfway around town to get home.
My name is Michael Cooke. My film is called Across the Tracks. It's a short film. It follows two young African-American sisters who are growing up in the late 60s, and the youngest one is fair-skinned, so she tries to pass as white. We're trying to educate people in the very notion that this is a story that happened. It's fact-based in fiction. This story is not based on anyone in particular, and then again, it's based on anyone in particular who had to deal with this during that time. So we're really just trying to show people a different type of story that took place during that time. And we follow them as young girls growing up in the late 60s in the Deep South, and 40 years later as older women to see how their relationship maintained.
This is Tara Hines.
Come on, Tyler. 40 years is a long time to hold a grudge. Now, I've known y'all had y'all differences, and it ain't my place to speak on it. But can't you be sisters for 2 days?
As an independent filmmaker, I wear many hats. Primarily, it's directing. I have disciplines in like almost every field. I guess as an independent filmmaker, really, you ask anyone, you kind of look up into the sky because you do so many things on your independent projects. On paper, yes, you're a director most times, or a writer, or someone involved in the creative process. But when it comes down to actually getting your job done, you would do almost any position just to make sure that it happens. So on Across the Tracks, I was the director, I was the cinematographer, I was the editor, I was the producer, I was the accountant. I jump-started cars because that's what was needed for that production. I did a lot of things.
Mike and I, we've been in this from the beginning. Like, honestly, I would have never thought to do this because we didn't have enough money to do something like this. I think if he didn't have all the skills that he had, and like our skills combined, we joked at the beginning that even if no one else signed on, we'd still make the film. We'd still find a way to make the film just because we could take it from beginning to end.
It was an amalgamation of a lot of things that Kim and I really wanted to get across. Like the town itself, Arlington, Georgia. My grandparents grew up in that town, and since a little kid, I've always wanted to shoot something in that town. It was very small, out of the way, very nice people, one stoplight, and just from growing up there and spending so much time, I was like, I want to shoot something in these fields, in this town. I don't know what. Then the story kind of crafted itself and kind of lent itself to, it's like, okay, if we're gonna write something, going back to an independent film process, it's like, you know, you write to your strengths. You don't have a lot of money, unless your last name is Rockefeller or Scorsese. No one's gonna come in and just like magically give you things. So you have to do your creative justice and realistically say like, all right, me, myself now, with the resources that I have, what could I shoot? What could I film? What story could I tell? And give it a good chance of not looking like garbage. When writing with someone, a good writing relationship, I feel like you can't really pull apart what's yours and what's theirs. At least that's the way it is for me and Kim. Like, we came into this project and we both had a lot of things we wanted to get out. I think all good partnerships, they just kind of mixed and meshed and became one, because I feel if you could tell a delineation between two things, it would kind of ruin the film. You know, we had so many ideas for this one. We wanted to get an aerial shot. You know, we wanted to make it 10 times longer than it was. But again, when it came to the day, it's like, all right, this is what we can do very well and still have the story intact. So the town was a big part of why we wrote, where we wrote, and the scenes that we wrote. And those scenes delineated, okay, what would happen here? What could take place here? What realistically needs to happen here for a story to continue? The two main characters are Ella and Tara Hines, and we portray them as young girls and we portray them as older women. So we get to see them age throughout the film.
You ain't white, Ella. You ain't never gonna be white.
Why not? Look at me. Look at my hair, Tara. Look at my face.
Ella is more or less our main focus in this film. She has fair skin, and growing up in the late 60s, especially in South Georgia, with segregation, with Jim Crow laws, with everything being the way that they were, the lighter you were, the better you were treated. Her sister, Tara, is a little older than her, about 2 years I think we had it. She is the darker skinned sister, so she gets no preferential treatment when she goes into town. She's a little more plugged into the actual environment. Tara is more aware of her surroundings and what that means for her as a little black girl growing up in the South. So her demeanor is a little more hard, if only to properly balance out Ella's just lightheartedness of everything. You could say she was definitely the more serious sister growing up. She believed in her skin tone. She loved her skin tone because that's all she had. You know, you could even argue that she didn't have to straddle both worlds because she couldn't. You know, she was black and she looked the part, like her entire family was black. So because of that, she looked at the world through as one way. Like, I'm treated this way because of the color of my skin, and her resolve is as such, as you see in the film.
How long you think it's gonna be before they find out you ain't as white as you pretended to be?
Who's to say this ain't who I really am? Why we gotta stay out though, Daddy? We only part color.
Some folk don't know how to appreciate special people. And you two are special, my special baby girl.
We're really just trying to show people that, you know, the color of your skin doesn't decide your path in life. That colorism, bullying, racism, those are all very much a part of a very nasty and mean time in our history. And how do you grow out of that? I think that's honestly something our country's dealing with right now. It's like we all know so much and we don't know what to do with it. I know that you're white and I'm black, and inherently I probably shouldn't like you, but I do. You could even say Ella possibly represents that unknowing confusion in anyone who has to straddle both worlds. There was some viability if you were black, that if you were a little lighter, you would be treated a little better. So even that caused a lot of struggle and turmoil in the African American community. And Ella, as a young girl, she's really trying to wrestle with this mindset of being from two worlds. I'm black, but I'm white. Well, white people get treated better. Why can't I be white, especially if I'm both of them? She doesn't quite understand what the ramifications are of that, and rightfully so. During that time period, I would ask anyone, how do you properly demonstrate that to a young girl growing up in that time, especially who's light-skinned? We understand now because we have the history to look back on and we understand what that actually meant. But being a parent during the time where you're not even 100 years outside of slavery, still trying to deal with segregation and Jim Crow laws and everything that African Americans had to deal with at that time, how do you properly explain that to your daughter?
My mom had an aunt, and she was born in 1895. Once she became of age, she decided to go off and pass as white. There have been generations that have suppressed who they are because of this.
When I, read the script, it was touching because it's still problems that, even though it seems very extreme in the film, like these are still problems that people are experiencing on a day-to-day basis.
This kind of story and the message that it can convey isn't really in a history book.
We're trying to just show people this is what could happen. Put yourself in this scenario, be in this weird, mired event for 16 minutes, and then ask yourself, how do you feel?
A number of us on the project, not most of us, were mixed. I guess I related in terms of how does one self-identify when other people have expectations of you based on visually how you look. I think that made it more challenging for one of the characters in the movie because she looked different than her family.
That's just been one of the amazing side effects of this film is like people have had a great self-reflection of themselves. Whether it lasts, who knows? But at the same time, we can make you think for a little bit. You sit in that seat, you try to understand what happened, why it happened, why did those whys happen, and then you come back to yourself and hopefully you're a better suited person for it, or at least you look at things differently. You just don't take things at face value anymore. That would be my goal, if anything, for this film, for you to come away and you're able to look at scenarios and look at things a little bit differently and not for what they appear to be, but you actually question it and actually try to dive a little bit deeper into it.
I have to say, as a white woman in the South in 2014, it is difficult. But because it's difficult, I think it's important.
This is a story that a lot of Americans can relate to. I think this is, a great learning tool and will go far.
I think it's pretty important to talk about right now, especially after Ferguson and all of the other incidents that have been going on.
The cast are amazing. Like, we started the casting process really early on this because everyone that we spoke to, they all said the same thing. Like, you can't make this film without a great cast. And having two sisters that were younger and matching them with two sisters that were older that could still kind of show the range of the life history that our characters had, it was huge.
As far as casting went, casting was very, very important to us from early on. Even when we were still writing this, we were like, oh, casting, we gotta make sure this thing looks the part. We needed two sisters, one light skin, one dark, and we needed them to match as well with their younger versions of themselves. So our casting process took quite a while.
I grew up with a Puerto Rican mother and an African American father, and growing up in a predominantly white community, trying to figure out who I was. And so I had, of course, a lot of empathy for understanding the challenges that these two women had. We were crowdfunding and casting at the same time, so I think all in all that took about 3 months from start to finish. And we had a really great casting director, a phenomenal actress herself named Isabella Way. She's based out of New York, and she hopped on this project very early. A lot of the people who were part of the project hopped on early out of the strength of the script. They really liked what we were saying. But she came on, really guided us through the casting process. And we kind of leaned on her heavy because we had never been involved so heavily in casting, at least from the grassroots part of it. Starting and not even knowing where to start. All right, where do we go? What do we do? It's like, okay, we'll put out a casting notice. She did all of that on Actors Access. We talked to a couple of managers, and then we just went from there and came away with an amazing cast. I'm so happy with the people who agreed to work on this with us.
I think my parents found it. And I think they thought it was like one of the perfect projects for me because like I look white and my dad's black and my mom's white. I'm this girl that's trying to pass as a white girl and she's just trying to fit in.
This is my first film project in any capacity. I have this conversation with my friends all the time. There's always this struggle of if you're lighter, you're better. And that still resonates now.
The bond of the characters in Across the Tracks really go back to the story, the bigger story itself about what actually is taking place. And that in itself goes back to the script. All the things you don't write in the actual script, the character development stuff, the character bios, the subtext, the history, just developing the world, all of that I feel plays into the bond that our sisters have, our actors have, our characters have with each other, because everyone has their own story. The one thing I really enjoy about the short film process is like it's just a peek into someone's life. So I really wanted to establish that this story was ongoing. We just happened to pick it up here.
Meant a lot to her. Like you even know how Mama felt. When was the last time you come around again?
You are not one to judge me, Ella. She was my mother too. She knew how much I loved her.
She sure was lucky to have you as a daughter now, wasn't she? I mean, taking time out of your life to take care of her and all. No, wait. That wasn't you, was it?
Okay, lady, is it gonna be like this the whole time? Because I don't need this.
You don't need this? You come up in Mama's house disrespecting her and sitting up here like you all high and mighty?
You are the last person to be talking to me about disrespect.
Unless you're really paying attention, which I hope it comes across, you understand that there was a point before the story and there's a point that's going to happen after it, and you are just lucky enough to catch the middle ground when Tara has to come home because her mother passed away. So with that being said, I spent a lot of time with the actors via Skype or in person, and just telling them, you know, giving them their developmental process that they need as a character. Again, all the things you never see on the script, on the screen, that was enforcing the characters and their motivations. The fact that Thursday Farrar, who plays Tara, the older version of Tara, that she was a real estate developer in Atlanta, and her job involved, you know, multi-million-dollar deals on condos and high-rises. What type of person is that? Outside of your relationship with your sister, what type of person would that make you? And I gave them enough of, I feel like I gave the actors enough of a space to develop their own characters, to make it themselves. And you know, when they quote unquote presented me like, hey, here's who I think it is, like, yeah, that's great, because as a director, you know, you want your actors to feel comfortable in the character that they're portraying. And everyone, Thursday, Carla, Berkeley, Bryn, all of them, they just knocked it out of the park. They really grabbed onto the characters, they developed them, they made it their own, and they were very, very excited to get their character onto the screen, which I think you actually need. You need to motivate your actors to want to do the best job that they can do, so they're not feeling like they're just taking orders or following orders, that they themselves can be this character and inhabit this character on the screen, and all we had to do was just roll the cameras. That's ideally what I like for my actors to be able to do, just come in, be themselves in this character, and we capture that moment.
Ladies, please. Not in your mama's house, not where she raised y'all.
I feel like each character is a little part of myself and Kim. And I feel like what has happened is each character in a way represents a part of everyone who's kind of watching the film. You have Ella, who really just wants to be accepted. You know, not for nothing, you can be as strong-willed as you like, but everyone likes to be liked. Like, I don't think that's an arguable topic. Then you have Tara, the woman who stands in her values, with her morals, and, you know, goes through the fire because she understands, like, this is the way things need to be done. You have their younger selves and their older selves who still reflect like a little bit of that. You can even go back and say you have Walter Lee, the family friend, who's more or less just trying to keep a nice, stable, everybody come together, we're good, right?
When they began to do the Seed and Spark, I said, I'd like to lend support in whatever way I can. And she said, well, we got character too, and we know you act, would you be interested? And I said, yeah. They said, will you read for us? And so I read something for them, and they said, you know what, we think that's Walter Lee's. Well, it's about choices. You know, the two girls have a choice, and those choices always have consequences.
Hats off to the cast and director, to Mike, to Kim, for putting together such an amazing cast. From the transition from kids to adulthood, it's very believable.
Even a part of me, I guess, if you wanted to explore the bullies, the kids as well, like, part of them even reflect like the nastier side of us, the part of us that, you know, hates, the part of us that is scared of change, the part of us, the mob mentality, when you see someone else doing something that you kind of agree with, like, well, he's doing it, she's doing it, maybe it's not so bad if I do it too.
Dirty mutts, the both of them. Dirty mutts, dirty mutts, dirty mutts, dirty mutts, dirty mutts.
Again, this is my first time out of the gate narrative directing, and it's a big learning curve. Yeah, you learn a lot. Like we've had a lot of good success. I've met a lot of great people, but I think because both my parents and my grandparents on each side are teachers, So honestly, anything I do, I always have to take, like, okay, what can I learn from this? And it's definitely a learning process. Like, what am I gonna do differently next time? How are you gonna approach the festivals next time? Even from a marketing standpoint, like, you see just the inner workings of all of this and like what you're trying to get out of the festival circus. Most people are going, you know, hoping to get enough notoriety to entice distributors, and then they themselves, you know, are able to sell their film, make money off their film, because as a director, as a writer, as a producer, as anyone I would imagine above the line on a film, as amazing as that film might be, unless you can really turn a profit on it or understand how to, it's going to be harder and harder to make your craft. Now, again, that doesn't apply to you if your last name is Rockefeller or Scorsese, but for the majority of us to do a service to our craft, you gotta kind of play the market and play the game and see about how to entice the distributors. What are they liking? What don't they like? Can you write something in your wheelhouse that maybe is more in the line of what people want to see? And you get to meet people. You get to actually talk to people, see what they liked about your film, on some occasions what they didn't like about your film, you know, read an audience, see where they gasp, see where they ooh, see where they ah, see other films as well, be influenced by other short films, meet other short film directors, producers, so your network there is growing.
Challenge as a producer is to get really talented people who are worth a lot more to come and live with you in a very small town where they can't go home at night and to pay them almost nothing for it.
It's a lot of work, and then creepily looking at people all day on set to make sure that they're not shiny, and fanning them with fans so their gnats aren't in their face.
Making sure hair's not out of place, making sure everything flows as far as wardrobe, makeup, hair, just ties it all together.
Logistics, making sure that everything is where it needs to be when it needs to be there.
Don't be afraid to work with other people. Even people, if you want to be a director and the next guy wants to be a director, you guys need to know each other. You guys need to be friends. There's enough work out there for everyone. Try your best to throw that chip off your shoulder, which happens very early on. Like it happened with me. Like, you're in your very early part of your career. You want to get these jobs. Cool, this is me, I'm trying to get the job. What, there's another director here too? You think you have to shun that person because he's gonna take your job or she's gonna take your job. That's a natural reflex. I think everyone has that, but fight through that the best you can. Don't roll over backwards, but, you know, make a point to actually try and be friends with these people you're growing up with, because that's what's going to happen. Like, everyone's going to succeed if you have the right mindset, and you'll be happy 10 years later when everyone's knee deep into their career and you just have someone else to rely on, someone else to talk shop about. That level of camaraderie is invaluable, because ideally you're in this career because you want to make films or you want to tell stories. And when you get to a point to where finally your vision is worth enough to support your rent, so you can actually create and not have to worry about if you can keep the lights on, then on top of that, you just have other things that happen, and you want to talk to someone, or you want to be able to have a network to where work is thrown your way, or vice versa. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten work from other directors or other DPs because they couldn't take the job, and vice versa. It's like, I can't take a job. Even like a couple of weeks ago, like, I couldn't take a job and I had to just recommend another DP. And he got that job, and what does that do? It's like, well, he got the job, he thanked me. I was like, great, you're gonna do an amazing job. You look good because you recommended a great person, and he now owes you a favor in a weird way. So don't be afraid to befriend the people who you think are after your job.
Helping whoever I can, running errands, calling extras, contacting cast.
That everybody has stuff that they might need throughout the day. I get to be in charge of the walkie-talkies.
It varies. One moment I might be assisting the director, the next I might be helping with some of the production needs. Wide variety of tasks that I've taken on.
My day-to-day workflow was to back up our producer Kimberly James. Sometimes her workload would overload and she would have me there to pass stuff on, but predominantly I took care of the contracts and putting out fires.
For me, I'm in a collaborative role with Mike, the director, who's acting kind of director DP. Essentially, we're just approaching kind of shot by shot. I get to see what Mike blocks out for directing, And we quickly kind of break down what he has already thought about, and then what we can actually do on the day.
Work hard, man. Like, keep working. If you think you're done, you're not. Like, keep working. Like, you're never done. So just continually work hard. Try and better yourself with your craft as well. Learn as much as you can. The College of YouTube is amazing right now. You can learn so much on YouTube and not have to pay a dime. Work on bigger projects too, and lower positions, like PA if you can. PA on like multi-million-dollar films, PA on daytime television, PA on all the projects where they have all the toys, all the resources that you can't even comprehend, because what that does, it teaches you the proper way production is supposed to be done. It teaches you, it shows you how things are done on a massive level, where you have everyone in their place, where you have a line producer and a production supervisor and you need to be on those shoots so you can see how the big boys run it. And then from there, you kind of can adapt and change and understand how you can apply it to your shoot. But if you have the rules and regulations and the understanding of how it actually is supposed to go, you're able to kind of bend the rules a little bit in your favor, especially if you're going to be an indie producer, an indie director, because not to say you won't be doing 8 different jobs, but at least you understand what all those jobs maintain. You understand if you're going to produce, you have to figure out how much insurance you need. Well, what's your budget? Okay, well, how much is the gear we're renting? We need to have insurance for that. Well, where are we going? Like, oh, well, we have minors on set. Minors can only work a certain amount of hours. Like, those are things that could easily fall through the cracks if you're not actively trying to better yourself, work on larger projects. And also what that'll do, working on larger projects, it'll definitely help kick that ego thing off your shoulder. You need that stuff, and it's something that you're not really taught in college. Not for nothing, not to say that the curriculum was bad, but it's just like, there's not a ethics or a psychology course or an anthropology course on how to act when you get into the real world. You're in this bubble for 4 years trying to learn how to do what you think you know how to do to the best of your ability. Then you get out into the real world, and there's no more meal plans, there's no more dorm rooms, and there's no more friends that you can walk over there, and you know just enough to not know nothing. You know just enough to just start right at the very bottom. Yeah, you've been filming and shooting with your friends for 4 years. That doesn't matter. Go get us coffee, go PA, and maybe we'll invite you back. And you better be thankful for that PA job, because that's how it starts.
When I was little, the best thing you could be was a white person. You didn't have a care in the world. You could go anywhere, do anything. No one could stop you. It's just the way it was.